There's a valley in southern China where 1 in every 20 people lives past 90. Not 85, 90. And here's what researchers noticed when they spent 18 months documenting daily life there. These elders weren't doing high-intensity interval training. They weren't running marathons or lifting heavy weights. They were performing 6 specific movements, most of them so simple you could do them while waiting for coffee to brew, and each one targets something that silently deteriorates after 60 if you ignore it. Balance, joint lubrication, spinal flexibility, circulation to your extremities, the strength in your feet that prevents falls, and something called proprioception, which is your body's ability to know where it is in space without looking. When proprioception fades, you trip over nothing. You misjudge a curb. You reach for a counter that's 6 inches further than you thought. What they don't tell you in most fitness advice for older adults is that the movements that protect you at this stage of life are not the ones that build muscle mass or burn the most calories. They're the ones that keep your nervous system sharp and your connective tissue pliable. They're the ones that send signals up and down your spine dozens of times a day so your brain doesn't forget how to control your legs when you need them most. And in that valley, these 6 movements are woven into daily routine so seamlessly that people don't even think of them as exercise. They think of them as just how you move through the world when you want to stay independent. Now here's the structure. I'm going to walk you through all 6 movements in order from the simplest to the one that has the most profound effect on fall risk and longevity. Movement number 2 is the one that confused Western researchers for years because it looks like it does almost nothing, yet the people who skip it lose ankle mobility twice as fast. And movement number 1 is a 30-second practice done every morning that has been linked in observational data to a 40% lower incidence of hip fractures over 10 years. Not because it strengthens your hips directly, but because it rewires a reflex you probably haven't thought about since childhood. Before we go further, drop a comment right now. Just tell me your age and where you're watching from. I want to know how far this reaches and whether you've ever tried any movement practices from other cultures. Just age, location, and a yes or no on that last part. Takes 5 seconds. Let's start with movement 6. Toe raises with a twist. You stand next to a wall or a sturdy chair, feet together, and you rise up onto the balls of your feet. Nothing unusual there. But here's the twist. As you lift, you simultaneously try to spread your toes as wide as you can inside your shoes, or barefoot if you're home. You hold the top position for 2 seconds, then lower slowly over 4 seconds. You do 10 repetitions, and you do this twice a day, morning and evening. Why it matters is simple. After 60, the small muscles in your feet atrophy faster than almost any other muscle group. These muscles are your first line of defense against losing your balance. When they weaken, your foot becomes a rigid platform instead of a responsive, adaptable base. Every wobble gets transmitted straight up to your ankle and knee instead of being absorbed and corrected at the foot. And here's the mechanism. Those intrinsic foot muscles, the ones between your metatarsals and around your arch, only get strong if they're challenged to spread and grip. Modern shoes, even supportive ones, immobilize them. So do flat floors. This movement reactivates them. Research from biomechanics labs studying gait in older populations has found that people with stronger intrinsic foot muscles have significantly better balance scores and fewer falls. In some analyses, the difference in single-leg stance time can be as much as 8 seconds longer for those with active foot musculature compared to those with atrophied feet. 8 seconds might not sound like much, but in a stumble, that's the difference between catching yourself and going down. Let me tell you about Margaret. She was 71, a retired postal worker who loved gardening but had started feeling unsteady whenever she leaned over to pull weeds. She'd already fallen twice in 6 months, both times catching herself on her hands, once spraining a wrist. I had her start doing toe raises with the spreading cue every morning after brushing her teeth and every evening before bed. Took about 90 seconds total each time. Within 3 weeks, she told me her feet felt more alive. That's the phrase she used. Alive. By week 6, she was back in the garden, leaning and pivoting without that constant background fear. She still does the movement daily, 2 years later. Here's how you do it safely. Stand next to a counter or the back of a solid chair. Place your fingertips lightly on the surface, just enough to assist if you wobble. Feet together, weight evenly distributed. Now rise up smoothly onto the balls of your feet, and as you do, imagine you're trying to spread your toes apart like you're gripping the ground. You won't see much movement if you're wearing shoes, but you'll feel the muscles in the arch engage. Hold at the top, count 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, then lower slowly. 4 seconds down. If 4 seconds feels too long, start with 2 and build up. If you have neuropathy in your feet, do this barefoot on a textured mat so you get more sensory feedback. If you have balance issues that make even assisted standing risky, you can do a modified version seated. Sit in a chair, place your feet flat, and press down through the balls of your feet to lift your heels while spreading toes. You lose some of the balance challenge, but you keep the foot muscle activation. Do 10 reps, twice a day. You can stack this with something you already do. Right after you finish your morning coffee, do your 10 reps at the kitchen counter. Right before you sit down for dinner, do your 10 reps at the dining table. The key is consistency. Every single day. Miss a day, and you're not building a habit. Miss a week, and you start losing the small gains. Here's the kicker. This movement doesn't just strengthen your feet. It also sends a burst of proprioceptive information up through your ankle to your brain. Your nervous system gets a reminder that your feet exist and that they have fine motor control. Over time, that reminder makes your automatic balance reactions faster. So when you do start to trip, your foot corrects before your conscious mind even registers the wobble. Movement 5 is called the pelvic clock, though in some regions of China it's done without a name at all, just as part of morning stretching. You lie on your back on a firm surface, knees bent, feet flat on the floor about hip-width apart. Then you imagine your pelvis is the face of a clock. 12 o'clock is at your belly button, 6 o'clock is at your tailbone, 3 o'clock is your right hip, 9 o'clock is your left hip. You slowly tilt your pelvis to point to each hour, moving in a circle. First clockwise for 8 full circles, then counterclockwise for 8. Why this matters is that your pelvis is the foundation for your spine. If your pelvis is stiff, or if the muscles around it are asymmetrically tight, every movement you make, from walking to reaching overhead, starts from a compromised base. After 60, people lose range of motion in their hips and lower back not primarily because of bone changes, though those happen, but because the small stabilizing muscles around the pelvis stop moving through their full range. They get locked in whatever position you spend most of your day in, which for many people is sitting. The pelvic clock gently restores that range and reminds those muscles. They can move in all directions. There's been consistent documentation in physical therapy. Literature that people who maintain pelvic mobility have less chronic lower back pain and better walking efficiency. Some studies have shown that structured pelvic tilting exercises can reduce lower back pain scores by 30 to 40% over 8 weeks in older adults. The mechanism is straightforward. When your pelvis can tilt and rotate smoothly, your lumbar spine doesn't have to compensate with excessive bending. Your hips don't have to overwork. Everything shares the load. Consider Robert. He was 68, a former truck driver, and he'd been dealing with a dull, constant ache in his lower back for 3 years. He'd tried heating pads, over-the-counter anti-inflammatories, and a chiropractor who gave temporary relief but no lasting change. I introduced him to the pelvic clock. Every morning, right after waking, before getting out of bed, he'd spend 3 minutes doing those circles. 8 clockwise, 8 counterclockwise. Slow and controlled. Within 2 weeks, he said the morning stiffness was cut in half. By 6 weeks, the ache was gone most days. He still does it every morning. He says it's like oiling the hinges before you open the door for the day. Here's the exact protocol. Lie on your back on a yoga mat or a firm carpet. If your floor is too hard, put a folded towel under your hips. Bend your knees, feet flat, about hip distance, arms relaxed at your sides. Close your eyes if that helps you focus. Now tilt your pelvis so your lower back presses into the floor. That's 12 o'clock. Then tilt the other way so your lower back arches slightly off the floor. That's 6 o'clock. Rock gently between those two a few times to get the feel. Then, start moving around the clock. From 12, shift your weight slightly to the right hip. That's 1 o'clock. Keep going. 2 o'clock. 3. As you go around, you'll feel different spots where it's harder to tilt or where you want to rush through. Those are the spots that need the most attention. Slow down there. Make the circle as smooth as you can. After 8 circles clockwise, pause, take a breath, then go 8 circles counterclockwise. If you have significant hip arthritis, you might feel a pinch at certain points in the circle. Don't force it. Make the circle smaller. You're not trying to set a range of motion record. You're trying to maintain what you have and gently nudge it a little further each week. If lying flat bothers your back, put a pillow under your knees. If you've had a hip replacement, check with your surgeon. But generally, this is safe after the initial healing period because the movement is controlled and non-weight-bearing. 3 minutes. Every morning. You can do it before you even sit up in bed. In fact, that's ideal because your spine is naturally more hydrated and flexible in the morning. The discs between your vertebrae absorb fluid overnight, so morning is when you have the most cushioning and the best opportunity to restore range of motion without forcing anything. Now here's what happens when you combine movement 6 and movement 5. Your feet become more responsive, your pelvis becomes more mobile, and suddenly walking feels easier. You're not shuffling. You're not stiff. You're moving with a rhythm that used to be automatic but had started to fade. And that rhythm is protective. It's what keeps you from falling. Movement 4 is wrist and ankle circles, done simultaneously. You sit in a chair, lift both feet slightly off the ground, extend both arms straight out in front of you, and then you make circles with your wrists and circles with your ankles at the same time. 10 circles in one direction, then 10 in the other. You do this 3 times a day. This one looks trivial. It looks like something you do to kill time in an airport. But here's why it's in this list. Your wrists and ankles are far from your heart, and after 60, circulation to your extremities often becomes sluggish. Not enough to cause serious symptoms in most people, but enough that you might notice your hands and feet are cold more often, or that you get pins and needles when you sit too long, or that cuts and bruises on your hands take longer to heal. The small, repetitive motion of circling your wrists and ankles acts like a pump. It encourages venous blood to return to your heart and fresh arterial blood to flow out. Additionally, these joints are surrounded by a huge number of nerve endings. When you move them through their full range, you're sending a dense packet of sensory information to your brain. That information keeps the motor maps in your brain accurate. Your brain maintains a representation of your body, a map of where everything is and how it moves. If you stop moving a joint through its full range, that part of the map gets fuzzy. When the map is fuzzy, your control is poor. You drop things. You catch your foot on stairs. You misjudge distances. Evidence from rehabilitation research has shown that people who regularly perform joint mobility exercises maintain better fine motor control and report fewer symptoms of stiffness and discomfort. In some observations, joint circling exercises done consistently have been associated with modest improvements in reported hand function and balance confidence. The effect is not dramatic in the short term, but over months and years it compounds. Let me tell you about Linda. She was 74, a retired teacher who loved knitting. She'd started to notice her fingers felt stiff in the mornings and her hands ached after an hour of knitting. She also had a habit of tripping on the edge of rugs because, in her words, her feet weren't paying attention. I had her do wrist and ankle circles 3 times a day, morning, midday, and evening. Each session took less than 2 minutes. After 10 days, she said her hands felt looser in the mornings. After a month, she was knitting longer without pain, and she stopped tripping. She didn't even notice that change until I asked her about it 6 weeks in. She said, "Oh yeah, I haven't caught my foot on anything in weeks. I forgot that used to happen." Here's how to do it. Sit in a sturdy chair with your back supported. Lift your feet a few inches off the ground. If that's too hard on your hip flexors, rest your heels on the floor but keep your toes lifted so your ankles can move freely. Extend both arms straight in front of you, shoulder height, hands open. Now start making slow circles with your wrists. Pretend you're stirring a pot with each hand. At the same time, make circles with your ankles. Roll your feet around like you're drawing circles in the air with your toes. 10 circles clockwise, then pause. Shake out your hands and feet, then 10 circles counterclockwise. Repeat that sequence 3 times. Breathe normally. Don't hold your breath. If your shoulders get tired from holding your arms up, you can rest your forearms on the arms of the chair and just circle your wrists and ankles. You lose a bit of the shoulder endurance challenge, but you keep the joint mobility benefit. If you have carpal tunnel syndrome, keep the wrist circles gentle and stop if you feel any sharp tingling. If you have peripheral neuropathy, this movement is especially valuable because the motion and the sensory feedback can help maintain whatever nerve function you have left. 3 times a day. Morning, midday, evening. You can do it while watching the news, while waiting for your tea to steep, while sitting in a waiting room. No equipment, no special clothing, just 2 minutes of deliberate, full-range motion in your wrists and ankles. Here's something interesting. When researchers were observing daily routines in those long-lived populations, they noticed that these small, frequent movement breaks were everywhere. People didn't sit for 2 hours straight. They'd sit for 20 minutes, get up and do something, sit again, do a little stretching, sit again. The idea of a single exercise session at one time of day was foreign. Movement was spread throughout the day in small doses. That pattern turns out to be more protective than a single 30-minute workout followed by 10 hours of sitting. Your body responds to frequency and consistency more than intensity when the goal is maintaining function. Movement 3 is spinal twists from a seated position. You sit in a chair, feet flat on the floor, and you slowly rotate your upper body to look over your right shoulder, hold for 5 seconds, return to center, then rotate to look over your left shoulder. Hold, return. You do 5 twists to each side, and you do this twice a day, morning and evening. Why it matters is that your spine is designed to rotate. Rotation is one of the primary movements your thoracic spine, the part between your shoulder blades, is built for. But most people stop rotating their spine on purpose after about age 50. They turn their whole body instead of twisting at the waist. They reach for something behind them by pivoting their feet instead of rotating their torso. Over time, the muscles and fascia that allow rotation tighten up, the vertebrae lose their ability to glide smoothly, and the discs between them get stiff. When you lose spinal rotation, you lose a huge amount of functional capacity. You can't look over your shoulder to check your blind spot when driving without turning your whole body. You can't reach into the back seat of a car. You can't turn to talk to someone beside you without shifting your feet. More importantly, spinal rotation is intimately connected to your gait. When you walk, your upper body naturally counter-rotates relative to your lower body. Your right arm swings forward as your left leg steps forward, and vice versa. That counter-rotation, that twist through your spine, is what makes walking efficient and balanced. If your spine is stiff and won't rotate, your gait becomes rigid. You shuffle. You lose the natural arm swing. And when your gait degrades, your fall risk skyrockets. There's solid documentation in the biomechanics and geriatric literature that reduced spinal rotation is a predictor of falls and reduced walking speed in older adults. Some analyses have found that people with less than 20 degrees of thoracic rotation have nearly double the fall rate compared to those who maintain normal rotation. The good news is that spinal rotation can be restored with regular, gentle practice. You're not trying to twist like a gymnast. You're trying to maintain the 50 or 60 degrees of rotation that's normal for a healthy spine. Let me tell you about George. He was 70, a retired engineer who played golf once a week. He'd noticed over 2 seasons that his drive distance had dropped and his back was sore after every round. He assumed it was age. When I watched him move, I saw that his thoracic spine barely rotated. His golf swing was all arms and shoulders with his torso staying almost locked. I introduced him to seated spinal twists. Every morning and every evening, 5 twists each side. He was skeptical. It seemed too simple. But within 3 weeks he felt looser, By 8 weeks, his drive distance came back about 15 yards and his post-golf back pain was gone. He still does the twists every day. He calls it his golf maintenance. Here's the protocol. Sit in a chair with a backrest, feet flat on the floor about hip-width apart. Sit up tall. Imagine a string pulling the top of your head toward the ceiling. Place your hands on your thighs or let them rest on the arms of the chair. Take a breath in. As you exhale, slowly rotate your upper body to the right. Let your head and shoulders turn, but keep your hips square and your feet planted. Go as far as you comfortably can, then see if you can go just a tiny bit further. You should feel a gentle stretch through your mid-back and maybe into your side. Hold that position for 5 seconds. Breathe, then slowly return to center. Pause, take a breath. Now rotate to the left. Same thing. As far as comfortable, then a tiny bit more. Hold 5 seconds. Return to center. That's 1 rep to each side. Do 5 reps. If you have significant osteoporosis, avoid forcing the twist. Keep it gentle. If you've had spinal surgery, check with your surgeon. But generally slow, controlled rotation is safe and beneficial after healing. If you feel any sharp pain, back off. You're looking for a stretch, not pain. The first few days, you might feel like you can barely rotate at all. That's normal if you haven't been moving this way. Every day, you'll gain a few degrees. Be patient. This is not a race. Twice a day, morning and evening. You can do it right after the pelvic clock in the morning and right before bed in the evening. Or pair it with something else you do routinely. After breakfast, do your twists. After dinner, do your twists. 3 minutes total per session. Here's something important. When you restore spinal rotation, you also improve rib cage mobility, which improves breathing. Your ribs attach to your thoracic spine, and they need to move freely for your lungs to expand fully. If your thoracic spine is stiff, your ribs can't move well, and your breathing becomes shallow. Shallow breathing means less oxygen delivery, more fatigue, and a subtle but chronic stress response in your nervous system. So by doing these twists, you're not just protecting your back and your gait. You're also supporting your respiratory system and your overall energy. Movement 2 is ankle pumps and toe pulls, done lying down or seated. You point your toes away from you as hard as you can, hold for 2 seconds, then pull your toes back toward your shin as hard as you can, hold for 2 seconds. You do 20 repetitions, and you do this 3 times a day. This is the one that confused researchers because it looks like it does almost nothing. You're just moving your foot up and down. But here's what's happening. Your ankle joint is not just a hinge. It's a complex joint that relies on balance between the muscles in your calf and the muscles in your shin. The calf muscles, your gastrocnemius and soleus, are usually pretty strong even in older adults because you use them every time you stand or walk. But the muscles in the front of your shin, the dorsiflexors, atrophy rapidly if you don't challenge them. When the dorsiflexors weaken, your foot drops. You don't lift your toes high enough when you take a step, so you shuffle or catch your toes on the ground. That's the #1 setup for a trip and fall. Additionally, when you actively pump your ankle, you're using your calf muscles to push blood back up toward your heart. This is called the calf muscle pump, and it's critical for circulation in your lower legs. After 60, if you sit a lot or if your calf pump isn't working efficiently, blood pools in your lower legs. You get swelling. You get that heavy, tired feeling in your legs by the end of the day. You increase your risk of blood clots. Ankle pumps directly activate the calf pump, keeping blood moving. Studies in vascular medicine and physical therapy have documented that regular ankle pumping can reduce lower leg swelling and improve circulation. In some clinical settings, ankle pumps are prescribed after surgery to prevent deep vein thrombosis. The effect is real and measurable. And the toe pull part of the movement, pulling your toes back toward your shin, specifically strengthens the dorsiflexors, which, as I said, are the muscles that prevent foot drop and tripping. Let me tell you about Paul. He was 76, a retired electrician who had started shuffling when he walked. His wife told him he looked like an old man. He hated that. He also noticed his ankles were puffy by evening and his legs felt heavy. I had him do ankle pumps 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, evening, 20 reps each time. Within a week, the evening ankle swelling was noticeably less. Within 3 weeks, his wife said he wasn't shuffling anymore. He was picking his feet up. He does the ankle pumps religiously now. He says it takes 90 seconds 3 times a day, and it's the easiest thing that's ever made a visible difference. Here's how to do it. You can do this seated or lying down. If you're seated, sit with your feet flat on the floor or extend your legs out in front of you if you have space. If you're lying down, lie on your back with your legs straight. Start with your feet in a neutral position. Now point your toes away from you, like you're trying to touch the wall in front of you with your toes. Push hard, feel your calf muscles tighten. Hold for 2 seconds. Then pull your toes back toward your shin. Flex your ankle. Pull as hard as you can. You should feel the muscles in the front of your shin working. Hold for 2 seconds. That's 1 rep. Do 20 reps. The first 10 might feel easy. The last 10 should feel like your shin muscles are working. Breathe normally. Don't hold your breath. If you have a history of calf cramps, start gently and build up intensity. If you get a cramp, stop, massage the calf, and try again more gently next time. If you have peripheral artery disease, this movement is safe and actually beneficial because it helps move blood, but if you feel pain in your calf that doesn't resolve with rest, talk to your doctor before continuing, 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, evening. You can do it while you're sitting watching television. You can do it first thing in the morning while still in bed. You can do it at your desk if you work. No one will even notice you're doing it. And yet, over weeks and months, you're maintaining ankle mobility and calf pump function that would otherwise decline. Here's the interesting part. Ankle mobility is one of the single best predictors of walking speed in older adults. Walking speed, in turn, is one of the most powerful predictors of overall health and longevity. It's been called the 6th vital sign. People who walk faster live longer, have fewer hospitalizations, maintain independence longer. And walking speed depends heavily on whether your ankle can move through its full range when you take a step. If your ankle is stiff, your stride shortens, your speed drops, and everything downstream suffers. So by doing ankle pumps every day, you're directly protecting one of the most important markers of healthy aging. Movement 1 is the single leg balance with eyes closed. This is the most powerful movement in the set, and it's the one that has been linked in observational data to significantly lower hip fracture rates over 10 years. Here's what you do. You stand next to a wall or counter, just close enough to reach out and touch it if you need to. You lift 1 foot off the ground, just a few inches. You balance on the other leg, then you close your eyes. You try to hold that position for 30 seconds. Then you switch legs and repeat. You do this once every morning. Why this is so powerful? When you balance on one leg with your eyes open, you're using 3 sensory systems to stay upright. Vision, your inner ear, and proprioception. When you close your eyes, you take vision away. Now you're relying only on your inner ear and proprioception. Your inner ear detects head movement and orientation, and proprioception is all the sensory feedback from your muscles, joints, and tendons telling your brain where your body is in space. After 60, both of these systems degrade if you don't challenge them. Your inner ear function slowly declines. Your proprioceptive sensors become less sensitive. When those systems weaken, you lose balance. You fall. The single leg balance with eyes closed forces your brain to rely on and sharpen those 2 systems. It's a direct challenge to the systems that prevent falls. And here's the key. The difficulty of the task, the fact that it's hard, is what drives the adaptation. If it were easy, your brain wouldn't learn. But because it's hard, your brain is forced to pay attention and make constant micro-adjustments. Over time, those micro-adjustments become faster and more automatic. Your balance reflexes get quicker. Research in fall prevention has consistently shown that balance training, especially balance training that removes visual input, is one of the most effective interventions for reducing falls. In some studies, people who did regular balance exercises had 40 to 50% fewer falls compared to control groups. 40 to 50%. That's not a marginal benefit. That's life-changing. And the single-leg balance with eyes closed is one of the most efficient ways to deliver that training. 30 seconds per leg, once a day. Let me tell you about Eleanor. She was 81, a retired librarian who lived alone. She'd fallen once in her kitchen, no injury, but it scared her. She started limiting her activities because she was afraid of falling again. I introduced her to the single-leg balance with eyes closed. At first, she couldn't do even 5 seconds without opening her eyes or grabbing the counter. That's how much her balance system had declined. But she kept at it. Every morning, right after brushing her teeth, she'd stand next to the bathroom counter and practice. 5 seconds became 10. 10 became 20. After 2 months, she could do 30 seconds on each leg with her eyes closed, most days without even wobbling much. Her fear melted. She started going to the grocery store again, walking to her neighbor's house, doing all the things she'd been avoiding. She told me the single-leg balance gave her life back. That's a direct quote. Here's the exact protocol. Stand next to a wall or a sturdy counter. Position yourself so you can reach out and touch it with your fingertips if you start to fall, but you're not leaning on it. Stand tall. Pick up your right foot, just a few inches off the ground. You can bend your knee and let your foot hang behind you, or you can lift your knee in front of you. Whichever feels more natural. Find your balance. When you feel stable, close your eyes. Try to hold for 30 seconds. Count in your head or use a timer. If you start to wobble and you need to open your eyes or touch the wall, that's fine. Note how long you lasted, then try again. Once you've done 30 seconds or your best attempt on the right leg, switch to the left. In the beginning, you might only last 5 or 10 seconds. That's normal. Every few days, you'll improve. Don't get frustrated. This is one of those things where progress is not linear. Some days you'll do worse than the day before. That's fine. The trend over weeks is what matters. If you have a history of falls or severe balance issues, keep your hand lightly touching the wall the whole time. Don't try to go fully hands-free until you've built up some confidence. Safety first. If closing your eyes feels too scary, start with your eyes open and progress to eyes closed over a few weeks. Once every morning, right after you get up, or after breakfast, or after you brush your teeth. Pick a cue, something you do every day, and attach the single-leg balance to it. That's how you make it a habit. Same time, same place, every day. 60 seconds total, 30 per leg. That's it. Here's why this is movement number 1, the most important. The ability to balance on one leg with your eyes closed is one of the single strongest predictors of functional independence in older adults. It predicts whether you'll be able to walk confidently, whether you'll fall, whether you'll need assistance with daily activities. In studies that have followed people over many years, those who could balance on one leg for more than 20 seconds with eyes closed at baseline had dramatically lower rates of falls and injuries compared to those who couldn't. And the beautiful thing is, this skill is trainable. You can get better at any age. Your nervous system remains plastic. If you challenge it, it adapts. Now, let's talk about how to stack these 6 movements into a realistic daily routine. Because knowing the movements is one thing. Actually, doing them every day is another. And the secret to consistency is not willpower. It's habit design. Here's a sample structure. When you wake up, before you get out of bed, do the pelvic clock. 3 minutes. Lie there, do your circles, then get up. After you brush your teeth, do the single-leg balance in the bathroom next to the counter. 60 seconds. While your coffee is brewing, do your toe raises at the kitchen counter. 90 seconds. After breakfast, do your seated spinal twists in your chair at the table. 3 minutes. That's your morning routine. 8.5 minutes, woven into things you already do. Midday, maybe after lunch, do your wrist and ankle circles while sitting. 2 minutes. Do another set of ankle pumps while watching the news or reading. 90 seconds. That's your midday check-in. 4.5 minutes. Evening, before or after dinner, do another set of toe raises. 90 seconds. Do your spinal twists. 3 minutes. Do wrist and ankle circles again. 2 minutes. Do ankle pumps. 90 seconds. That's your evening routine. 8 minutes. Total time per day, about 21 minutes, spread across 3 parts of the day. None of the sessions are longer than 9 minutes. You never have to set aside a big block of time. You never have to change into workout clothes. You never have to leave your house. You're just moving in small, intentional ways throughout the day. Now here's the thing. The first week, you'll have to think about it. You'll forget sometimes. That's normal. Set reminders on your phone if you need to. Put a sticky note on your bathroom mirror, on your coffee maker, on your television remote. Visual cues help. By the second week, it'll start to feel more automatic. By the 4th week, it'll be just what you do. And by the 8th week, you'll notice differences. You'll feel steadier. You'll move more easily. You'll have less stiffness. Other people might notice you're standing taller or moving more confidently. Here's what you need to understand. These 6 movements are not a fitness program. They're a maintenance program. They're how you keep the machinery working. Think of it like brushing your teeth. You don't brush your teeth to make them whiter or stronger. You brush them to prevent decay. These movements are the same. You're not doing them to get stronger or faster. You're doing them to prevent the silent decay of your balance, your mobility, your nervous system's ability to control your body. And here's the bigger picture. In those populations where people routinely live into their 90s while maintaining independence, movement is not something they do at a special time in a special place. It's woven into the fabric of daily life. They squat to pick things up instead of bending. They sit on the floor and get back up. They walk to the market. They work in the garden. They do these small, purposeful movements dozens of times a day. The modern Western lifestyle has removed almost all of that. We sit in chairs. We drive cars. We have machines that do the work. And our bodies are paying the price. You can't replicate a traditional lifestyle in a modern context. But you can replicate the principles. Frequent, varied, low-intensity movement throughout the day. That's the principle. These 6 movements are a way to apply that principle in a realistic way given how most people live now. They're a bridge between the biology of how your body was designed to move and the reality of how you actually live. Now let's talk about progression and adaptation. Because as you get better at these movements, you'll want to challenge yourself a bit more. That's good. That's how you continue to improve rather than just maintaining. Here's how to progress each movement safely. For toe raises, once you can do 10 reps easily with finger-light support, try doing them with no hands. Just stand next to the wall for safety, but don't touch it unless you wobble. Once you can do 10 reps no hands, try doing them with your eyes closed. That adds a huge balance challenge. Once you can do 10 reps eyes closed, try doing them on one leg. That's advanced. Most people over 60 won't get there, and that's fine. But if you do, you've achieved something remarkable. For the pelvic clock, once 8 circles in each direction feels easy, increase to 12 circles. Once 12 is easy, try doing the movement more slowly. Slower is harder because you have more control. Once that's easy, try doing the circles with your arms extended straight up toward the ceiling. That adds a stability challenge because your center of mass shifts. If that becomes easy, try doing the movement with one leg extended straight instead of both feet on the floor. That forces your core to work harder to stabilize. For wrist and ankle circles, once 10 circles feels easy, increase to 15. Once 15 is easy, try making the circles larger. Really extend the range of motion. Once that's easy, try doing the movement standing on one leg instead of sitting. That combines joint mobility with balance work. But only attempt that if your balance is already solid. For spinal twists, once 5 twists each side feels easy, increase to 8. Once 8 is easy, try holding each twist for 10 seconds instead of 5. Once that's easy, try adding a gentle side bend at the end of each twist. Twist to the right, hold, then tilt your torso slightly to the right to deepen the stretch, then return. Same on the left. For ankle pumps, once 20 reps feels easy, increase to 30. Once 30 is easy, try adding resistance. Loop a resistance band around the ball of your foot and hold the ends. When you point your toes, you're pulling against the band. When you flex your ankle, you're pulling against the band in the other direction. That makes the muscles work harder. For single leg balance with eyes closed, the progression is built into the movement. You're trying to increase your time. Once you can consistently do 30 seconds on each leg, aim for 45. Once you can do 45, aim for 60. Some people in their 80s and 90s can balance on one leg with eyes closed for over a minute. That's elite-level balance function. But even if you never get past 30 seconds, you're still reaping enormous protective benefits. Here's what you should not do. Do not try to progress too fast. Do not add difficulty until the current level feels genuinely easy for at least 2 weeks. Your nervous system adapts slower than your muscles. You might feel strong enough to do something harder after a few days, but your balance reflexes need more time to solidify. If you progress too fast, you increase your fall risk during the exercises, which defeats the whole purpose. And here's another critical point. These movements are designed to be done every day. Not 3 times a week, not when you feel like it. Every single day. The frequency is part of the intervention. Your nervous system needs frequent repeated input to maintain its calibration. Skipping days means you lose ground. It's like learning a language. If you practice every day, you improve steadily. If you practice sporadically, you forget what you learned and have to keep relearning. Now, let's address some common obstacles and how to work around them. Obstacle 1. You forget to do the movements. Solution. Stack them onto existing habits and use visual reminders. Put the list of movements somewhere you'll see it. Set alarms on your phone for the first few weeks. Tell a family member or friend what you're doing and ask them to check in with you. Make it harder to forget than to remember. Obstacle 2. You feel silly doing some of these movements, especially if other people are around. Solution. Remember that falling and breaking a hip is a lot sillier than standing on one leg in your kitchen. But if you genuinely feel self-conscious, do the movements in private. Do them in your bedroom with the door closed. Do them early in the morning before anyone else is up. You don't need an audience. You just need to do them. Obstacle 3. You have pain when you try certain movements. Solution. Modify the movement or skip it temporarily and focus on the others. If toe raises hurt your calves, do them with a smaller range of motion. If spinal twists hurt your back, do them with less rotation. If single leg balance is too hard, do it with your hand on the wall the whole time. There's always a way to adapt. And if a movement consistently causes pain that doesn't resolve, talk to a physical therapist or your doctor. Pain is a signal. Listen to it. Obstacle 4. You don't feel like you're getting results. Solution. Track your progress. Write down on day 1 how long you can balance on each leg with eyes closed. Write down how far you can twist your spine. Write down whether you have morning stiffness or evening ankle swelling. Then check again after 4 weeks. Then after 8 weeks. The changes are often gradual, so you don't notice them day to day. But when you compare week 0 to week 8, the difference can be striking. And remember, the biggest results are the things that don't happen. You don't trip. You don't fall. You don't lose mobility. Those are victories, even though they're invisible. Obstacle 5. You travel or your routine gets disrupted. Solution. These movements require no equipment and take up almost no space. You can do them in a hotel room. You can do them at a relative's house. You can even do most of them on an airplane if you're creative. The pelvic clock can be done in bed anywhere. Wrist and ankle circles can be done in a chair anywhere. Single leg balance can be done next to any wall or counter. Don't let travel be an excuse. Take your movement practice with you. Let's talk about what happens in your body over the long term if you do these 6 movements every day for a year. Your foot muscles get stronger and more responsive. Your arches lift. Your balance improves. Your ankle mobility increases. Your calf pump becomes more efficient. You have less swelling in your legs, better circulation, lower risk of blood clots. Your pelvis regains range of motion. Your lower back pain diminishes or disappears. Your spinal rotation improves. Your gait becomes smoother, more efficient. You walk faster. You have a longer stride. Your arm swing comes back. Your breathing deepens because your rib cage moves better. Your proprioception sharpens. Your brain's map of your body becomes more accurate. Your balance reflexes get faster. Your fall risk drops by 40% or more. But here's what's even more important. Your confidence increases. You stop being afraid of falling. You stop limiting your activities out of fear. You go places you'd been avoiding. You do things you'd stop doing. You stay independent longer. You stay engaged with life longer. And that's what this is really about. It's not about the movements themselves. It's about what the movements allow you to keep doing. They're tools for maintaining your independence and your quality of life. There's a concept in gerontology called healthspan. That's the number of years you live in good health, free from chronic disease and disability. It's different from lifespan, which is just how long you live. You can have a long lifespan but a short health span, which means you spend many years sick or disabled. The goal is not to add years to your life if those years are spent suffering. The goal is to add healthy, functional years, to extend your health span, and movement is one of the most powerful tools we have to do that. These 6 movements are health span extenders. They protect the systems that fail first as you age: balance, mobility, circulation, spinal flexibility, nervous system function. When those systems fail, independence fails. When those systems stay strong, you stay strong. It's that simple. Now, here's something that's important to understand about aging and movement. There's a widespread belief that decline is inevitable. That, after 60, you're just going to get weaker, stiffer, slower, more fragile, and there's nothing you can do about it. That belief is wrong. Decline is common, but it's not inevitable. Much of what we attribute to aging is actually the result of disuse. You stop moving in certain ways, and your body adapts to that lack of movement. It gets rid of the capacity you're not using. But the flip side is also true. If you start moving again, your body adapts in the other direction. You regain capacity. Even at 70, 80, 90 years old, your body can still adapt and improve. There's a famous study that took nursing home residents in their 80s and 90s, people who were frail and sedentary, and put them on a progressive strength training program. Within 8 weeks, they doubled their leg strength. Doubled. Some of them who hadn't walked without a walker in years were able to walk independently again. The capacity was there. It had just been dormant. Movement woke it up. The 6 movements you've learned here are not high-intensity strength training. They're gentler than that. But the principle is the same. You're waking up dormant capacity. You're reminding your body that it needs to maintain these systems because you're using them. And your body responds. It's never too late. If you're 62 or 82, the movements work the same way. The adaptations happen. You just have to show up and do the work. Here's a question to think about. What would your life look like a year from now if you did these 6 movements every day starting today? How would you feel? How would you move? What would you be able to do that you can't do now, or that you're afraid to do now? Hold that image in your mind. That's your motivation. That's why you're doing this. Not because some script told you to, but because you want that version of your future. And here's the flip side. What would your life look like a year from now if you did nothing? If you just let the decline continue, what would you lose? What would become harder? What would you stop doing because it felt too risky or too difficult? Hold that image too. That's the cost of inaction. You get to choose which future you move toward. Now let's talk about integrating these movements with other aspects of healthy aging, because movement doesn't exist in isolation. Your balance and mobility are affected by your nutrition, your sleep, your stress levels, your social connections, your sense of purpose. Everything is connected. If you're doing these 6 movements every day but you're not sleeping well, your balance will still suffer because sleep is when your nervous system consolidates the learning from the day. If you're not eating enough protein, your muscles won't maintain their strength even if you're challenging them. If you're chronically stressed, your cortisol levels stay high, which accelerates muscle loss and bone loss. If you're socially isolated, your cognitive function declines, which affects your motor control. So yes, do these 6 movements every day. But also pay attention to the other pillars of healthy aging. Eat real food, mostly plants with adequate protein. Sleep 7 to 8 hours a night in a dark, cool room. Manage stress through whatever works for you, whether that's meditation, time in nature, talking with friends, or a hobby you love. Stay socially connected. Have people you see regularly, talk to regularly, share your life with. Keep your mind active. Read, learn new things, play games, solve puzzles. Have a sense of purpose. Know why you get up in the morning. All of these things work together. The movements are one piece of a larger puzzle, but they're a crucial piece. Because without mobility, everything else gets harder. If you can't move confidently, you stop going places. If you stop going places, you become isolated. If you become isolated, your mental health suffers. If your mental health suffers, you stop taking care of yourself. It's a downward spiral, and it often starts with a loss of mobility and confidence in movement. These 6 movements help you avoid that spiral. They keep you mobile, confident, and independent, which keeps you engaged with life. Here's another thing to understand. The goal is not perfection. You're going to miss days. You're going to have days where you only do 3 of the 6 movements instead of all 6. You're going to have days where you're tired, or sick, or busy, and you just don't get to it. That's life. That's normal. Don't beat yourself up over it. Don't let one missed day turn into a missed week. Just get back to it the next day. Consistency is not about never missing. It's about always coming back. And here's something that might surprise you. There will be days when you don't want to do the movements, but you do them anyway, and afterward you feel better. The act of moving changes your state. It shifts your mood, your energy, your outlook. Movement is medicine in that way. It's not just physical. It's psychological. When you move your body with intention, you're telling yourself that you matter, that your health matters, that you're worth taking care of. That message sinks in over time. It changes how you see yourself. You stop seeing yourself as old and fragile. You start seeing yourself as someone who's actively maintaining their strength and independence. That identity shift is powerful. Now, let's talk about what to do if you want to go deeper. If you do these 6 movements every day for 6 months and you want to add more, what should you add? Here are some options. Add a daily walk, even 10 minutes. Walking is one of the single best forms of exercise for people over 60. It's weight-bearing, so it protects your bones. It's rhythmic, so it's good for your cardiovascular system. It's low impact. It gets you outside, which has mental health benefits. And it's functional. You're training the exact movement pattern you need for daily life. Add some resistance training. You don't need a gym. Bodyweight squats, wall push-ups, seated rows with a resistance band. 2 or 3 times a week, 10 to 15 minutes per session. Resistance training is how you maintain muscle mass, and muscle mass is protective against falls, against metabolic disease, against frailty. You lose about 3 to 8% of your muscle mass per decade after 30 if you don't actively work to keep it. Resistance training slows or stops that loss. Add some flexibility or mobility work beyond what's in the 6 movements. Gentle yoga, tai chi, or just a simple stretching routine. Flexibility keeps your joints healthy and your movement pain-free. It also has a meditative quality that helps with stress. But here's the key. Don't add anything until the 6 movements are a rock-solid habit. Don't try to do everything at once. Build one habit, let it solidify, then add the next. That's how sustainable change happens. If you try to overhaul your entire life in one day, you'll be overwhelmed and you'll quit. Small, consistent changes compound over time into massive results. Let's talk about the role of fear in aging. A lot of people over 60 live with a constant background hum of fear. Fear of falling. Fear of injury. Fear of losing independence. Fear of becoming a burden. That fear is understandable, but it's also counterproductive. Because fear makes you cautious, and excessive caution makes you inactive, and inactivity makes you weaker, which makes the thing you fear more likely to happen. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The antidote to fear is competence. When you feel competent in your body, when you trust that your legs will hold you and your balance will catch you, the fear fades. And competence comes from practice. That's what these 6 movements give you. Every day, you're practicing the skills that keep you safe. You're practicing balance, ankle stability, spinal mobility, circulation, proprioception. You're building competence. And as your competence grows, your fear shrinks. You start trusting your body again. You start taking risks again, healthy risks like walking on uneven ground or reaching for something on a high shelf. You reclaim your life from fear. I've seen this transformation dozens of times. People who come in hunched and cautious, moving like they're made of glass, and after a few months of consistent practice, they're standing taller, moving faster, smiling more. The physical changes are real, but the psychological changes are just as important. They stop seeing themselves as fragile. They start seeing themselves as capable, and that changes everything. Here's a practical tip for dealing with fear. When you're doing the single leg balance with eyes closed and you feel yourself start to wobble, don't immediately grab the wall or open your eyes. Try to correct the wobble first. Let your body figure it out. You have a split second where you can try to catch yourself before you need external support. That split second is where the learning happens. That's where your nervous system is forced to adapt. If you always grab the wall or open your eyes at the first sign of a wobble, you never train the reflex. But if you let yourself wobble and try to correct, your reflexes get faster. Obviously, if you're truly about to fall, grab the wall. Safety first. But if it's just a small wobble, try to ride it out. That's how you build robust, automatic balance. Now, let's talk about the social aspect of these movements. You don't have to do them alone. If you have a partner or a friend who's also over 60, do them together. Turn it into a daily ritual. Meet at the same time every day, even if it's over a video call, and do the movements together. There's accountability in that. You're less likely to skip if someone else is expecting you. There's also camaraderie. You can encourage each other, laugh at the wobbles, celebrate the progress. Movement can be social, and social movement is more sustainable than solitary movement for a lot of people. If you're part of a community group, a church, a club, a senior center, suggest doing these movements as a group. It takes 20 minutes. You could do it before or after your regular meeting. You'd be amazed how quickly a group habit forms and how powerful it is. People stick with things when they do them in community. And you'd be helping not just yourself, but everyone in the group. That's a gift. Here's something interesting. In those long-lived populations where these movements are common, they're often done in groups. People gather in parks in the morning and do Tai Chi together, or stretching routines, or slow walking meditation. It's social. It's communal. It's part of the culture. We've lost a lot of that in modern Western life. We exercise alone in gyms or in front of screens. But we're social creatures. We do better together. So if you can find a way to make these movements a social activity, do it. It'll increase your consistency and your enjoyment. Let's address a question that might be on your mind. How do these 6 movements compare to other exercise programs for older adults? There are a lot of options out there. Silver sneakers, chair yoga, water aerobics, Pilates for seniors, Tai Chi, walking groups. Are these 6 movements better? The honest answer is that the best program is the one you'll actually do. If you love water aerobics and you go 3 times a week, that's fantastic. Keep doing it. These 6 movements are not meant to replace something you're already doing successfully. They're meant to fill a gap. The gap they fill is this. Most exercise programs for older adults focus on cardiovascular fitness and strength. Those are important, but they don't directly address the #1 cause of injury and loss of independence in people over 60, which is falls. Falls happen because of poor balance, slow reflexes, weak foot muscles, loss of proprioception, and shuffling gait. These 6 movements target exactly those things. So even if you're doing other exercise, adding these 6 movements gives you a layer of fall protection that you might not be getting elsewhere. If you're not doing any structured exercise right now, these 6 movements are a perfect place to start. They're low intensity, low risk, require no equipment, and take 20 minutes a day. You can build from there once the habit is solid. Here's a question that comes up a lot. What if you've already fallen? What if you've already broken a bone or had a hip replacement or a knee replacement? Can you still do these movements? The short answer is yes, with modifications and with your doctor's clearance. If you've had surgery, wait until you're cleared for exercise, then start gently. You might need to do the movements with more support, smaller range of motion, or seated instead of standing. But the principles still apply. You still need balance, mobility, circulation, and proprioception. You might need to work with a physical therapist to adapt the movements to your specific situation, but they can be adapted. And here's something important. If you've already fallen, these movements are even more critical, because once you fall, your risk of falling again goes up dramatically. Your fear goes up, which makes you less active, which makes you weaker, which increases fall risk further. Breaking that cycle requires rebuilding your balance and your confidence. These movements do both. Let me tell you about Helen. She was 79 and had fallen in her bathroom 6 months before I met her. She fractured her wrist. It healed, but she was terrified of falling again. She'd stopped doing half the things she used to do. She wouldn't go out if the ground was wet. She wouldn't reach for anything above shoulder height. She was shrinking her life out of fear. I worked with her to adapt these 6 movements to her current capacity. She did the single leg balance with her hand on the counter the whole time. She did toe raises holding on with both hands. She did everything with more support than someone who hadn't fallen would need. But she did them every day. Over 3 months, she gradually needed less support. Her confidence came back. She started going out again, doing things again. A year later, she told me she felt safer on her feet than she had in 5 years. The fall had been a wake-up call, and the movements had been her response. Falls are not inevitable. Even if you've fallen before, you can reduce your risk going forward. It takes work, but it's worth it. Now, let's talk about the role of footwear in fall prevention, because it's related to these movements. A lot of older adults wear shoes that are working against them. Heavy shoes with thick, rigid soles, shoes with heels, even small heels, shoes that are too big or too loose, slippers with no back. All of these increase fall risk. The best shoes for fall prevention are lightweight, flat, flexible, and fit snugly. You want to feel the ground. You want your foot to be able to move and adapt. Barefoot is even better when you're on safe surfaces like carpet or a yoga mat. When you do these 6 movements, do them barefoot if possible, especially the toe raises and the single leg balance. Barefoot gives you maximum sensory feedback and allows your foot muscles to work fully. If you have neuropathy and can't feel your feet well, barefoot on a textured surface like a rubber mat can help. The texture gives you more input. If you have wounds or skin issues on your feet that make barefoot unsafe, wear minimal shoes, the thinnest, most flexible ones you have. And throughout the day, think about your footwear choices. Are your shoes helping your balance or hurting it? This is especially important indoors. A lot of falls happen at home, and a lot of those falls involve slippers or socks on smooth floors. If you wear socks, get ones with grip dots on the bottom. If you wear slippers, get ones that fit snugly with a back and a non-slip sole. Small changes in footwear can make a big difference. Here's another practical tip. Clear your home of tripping hazards. Loose rugs, clutter on the floor, electrical cords across walkways, poor lighting. These movements will make you more stable and better able to catch yourself if you trip, but it's still smarter to reduce the number of things you can trip on. Walk through your home and look at it with fresh eyes. What could you trip on? What's in your path? What's hard to see in low light? Fix those things. Add nightlights in hallways and bathrooms. Secure rugs with double-sided tape or remove them. Keep floors clear. These environmental modifications work together with the movement practice to lower your fall risk. Let's talk about hydration, because it affects balance and it's often overlooked in older adults. As you age, your sense of thirst becomes less reliable. You can be dehydrated without feeling thirsty. Dehydration affects your blood pressure, which affects your balance. It affects your muscle function. It affects your mental clarity, which affects your coordination. A lot of falls happen because someone is mildly dehydrated, their blood pressure drops when they stand up, they get dizzy, and they go down. The solution is simple. Drink water throughout the day, not just when you're thirsty. Aim for 8 glasses, more if it's hot or you're active. Keep a water bottle with you. Take a sip every time you do your movement practice. Morning movements, drink some water. Midday movements, drink some water. Evening movements, drink some water. Link the habit of drinking water to the habit of moving. That's habit stacking again, and it works. Now, let's talk about what happens if you plateau. You've been doing the movements for 3 months, you've seen good progress, and then progress stops. You're not getting better anymore. This is normal. It happens to everyone. There are a few reasons why. 1. You might have reached the limit of what these movements can give you at your current level of challenge. If that's the case, use the progressions I described earlier to make the movements harder. 2. You might have other limiting factors like poor sleep, chronic stress, or nutritional deficiencies. Address those. 3. You might need to add variety. Your nervous system adapts to repeated stimuli, so adding new movement patterns can kickstart progress again. If you plateau, don't get discouraged. A plateau is not a regression. You're maintaining what you've gained, which is still a victory. And plateaus are temporary. They're a signal to change something. Change the difficulty, change your recovery, change your nutrition, add something new. Experiment. Pay attention to how your body responds. Progress will resume. Here's something that's worth emphasizing. These movements are not a cure-all. They're not going to reverse osteoarthritis or fix a torn meniscus or cure peripheral neuropathy. They're not magic, but they will make you more functional within whatever limitations you have. If you have arthritis, you'll still have arthritis, but you'll move better and hurt less. If you have neuropathy, you'll still have neuropathy, but you'll have better balance despite it. If you've had a stroke, you'll still have the deficits from the stroke, but you'll maximize your remaining capacity. The goal is not to be 20 years old again. The goal is to be the best version of your current age. Let's talk about breathing during these movements because proper breathing makes them more effective and safer. A lot of people hold their breath when they concentrate or when they're doing something challenging. Holding your breath spikes your blood pressure and reduces oxygen delivery to your muscles and brain. That's counterproductive. So here's the rule. Breathe continuously, in through your nose, out through your mouth, slow and steady. If you find yourself holding your breath, that's a sign you're trying too hard. Back off the intensity slightly and focus on keeping your breath flowing. For movements like the pelvic clock or the wrist and ankle circles, just breathe naturally. For movements that require more effort, like the toe raises or the single leg balance, use a pattern. Inhale for 2 counts. Exhale for 3 or 4 counts. Longer exhales activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which calms you down and improves balance. So breathing is not just about oxygen. It's also about nervous system regulation. Here's a bonus tip. If you're doing the single leg balance and you're really struggling, try this. Focus your eyes on a single point on the wall at eye level. Don't let your gaze wander. Stare at that point. This is called a focal point, and it dramatically improves balance. Your visual system uses that fixed point to stabilize your perception of space, which helps your brain stabilize your body. Even with your eyes closed, having practiced with a focal point will improve your performance because your brain learns the stabilization pattern. Now, let's talk about the mental side of these movements. Your mindset matters. If you approach these movements with resentment, like it's a chore, you're less likely to stick with them. But if you approach them with curiosity and appreciation, they become something you look forward to. Try this. While you're doing the movements, pay attention to what you feel. Notice the muscles working. Notice the stretch. Notice the wobble and the correction. Be present with the sensations. That presence, that mindfulness, makes the movements more effective because your nervous system learns better when you're paying attention. And it makes the movements more enjoyable because you're not just going through the motions. You're engaging with your body. There's a concept in the movement training called interoception. That's your ability to sense what's happening inside your body. Interoceptive awareness is linked to better body control, better emotional regulation, and even better decision-making. These movements, done with attention, improve your interoception. You're tuning in, you're listening, and over time, that listening makes you more attuned to what your body needs, not just during the movements, but all day long. Here's what I want you to understand. These 6 movements are simple, but simple doesn't mean ineffective. In fact, simple is often more effective because simple is sustainable. Complex programs with 100 exercises and fancy equipment might work for some people, but most people quit after a few weeks because it's too much. These 6 movements you can do for the rest of your life. They scale with you. As you get older, you adjust the difficulty, but the movements stay the same. They become part of who you are, part of your daily rhythm. And here's the deeper truth. Aging well is not about fighting aging. It's not about trying to stay young. It's about navigating aging with skill and grace. It's about maintaining function, independence, and quality of life as the years go by. It's about staying engaged with the world, connected to people, active in your pursuits. These movements are tools for that navigation. They're how you keep your body capable of doing what you want to do for as long as possible. Which brings us to the final question. Which of these 6 movements will you start with? Or will you start with all 6 today? And why? What's your reason? Is it because you've fallen and you don't want to fall again? Is it because you've seen a parent or friend lose their independence and you're determined not to let that happen to you? Is it because you have grandchildren you want to be able to play with for years to come? Is it because you have things you still want to do and you need your body to cooperate? Whatever your reason, hold on to it. Write it down. Remind yourself of it when motivation wanes. Your reason is your anchor. And here's my final thought. You have more control over your aging than you think. Not total control, but more than you think. These 6 movements are an expression of that control. They're you saying, I'm not just going to let decline happen. I'm going to fight for every year of independence and vitality I can get. That fight doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be grueling. It can be quiet and consistent. 20 minutes a day of intentional movement. That's the fight. And it's a fight you can win. So let me leave you with this. Starting tomorrow morning, or even today if it's still morning where you are, when you wake up, before you do anything else, do the pelvic clock. 3 minutes. Lie in bed and move your pelvis in circles. Then get up, brush your teeth, and do the single leg balance. 30 seconds per leg. While your coffee brews, do toe raises. After breakfast, do spinal twists. You've now done 4 of the 6 movements and it's not even mid-morning. Add the wrist and ankle circles and ankle pumps later in the day. 21 minutes total, spread out. Do that tomorrow. Then do it the next day. Then the next. Don't think about next month or next year. Just think about today. Can you do these movements today? The answer is yes. So do them. Then ask yourself the same question tomorrow. One day at a time, you build a practice. One day at a time, you protect your future. Which movement will you try first, and why?